And we're live. So, welcome back, everybody. A lot has changed over, the last few weeks, probably since you've seen our last podcast. But that being said, we're gonna get straight into it. We have some very interesting topics today. We're gonna react to a trailer of a movie that's about to come out.
First time ever doing that.
First time ever doing that. So
for us,
follow us along on this ride. One of the topics we're gonna be talking about: why is everything in America so political?
Doesn't it seems like it is.
Doesn't it feel that way?
Yeah.
And on that topic, why are politicians getting exposed right now?
Yeah. Or are they getting exposed enough? Like, we want to talk about that. Like, how are politicians viewed now? Is it changing? Is it getting better or worse? We'll get into that too.
Yeah. But you know what? Let's get right into it. Let's get into why you're here. So let's watch this trailer.
So why don't you give them the background before we get in? What is this trailer for?
I don't know. Actually, you know more about this trailer than I do.
Well, it's a movie that's coming out. I don't know who put it out. I think it's A24, and it's titled Civil War. I remember seeing it, and I don't know. We'll wait till after it to react to it because I only saw it quickly and I was in the passing, but I wanted to have us watch it, and then we'll talk through, like, what do we think about it? I just think it's a very interesting concept of a movie I haven't seen before, and there's a lot to talk about, and it's titled Civil War, in a wild time in America. So here we go. Civil War.
Let me know if you want to try anything out.
I guess aware there's like a pretty huge civil war going on all across America.
We just try to stay out with what we see on the news. Seems like it's for the best.
Citizens of America, the so-called Western forces of Texas and California have suffered a very great defeat at the hands of the United States military.
Mr. President, do you regret the use of airstrikes against American citizens? We're moving to D.C. today.
Go down there.
They shoot journalists on sight in the Capitol. Every instinct in me says this is death. What?
Every time I survived a war zone, I thought I was sending a warning home. Don't do this. But here we are.
There's some kind of misunderstanding here. What? We're American, okay? Okay. What kind of American are you?
Jeez.
You don't know?
The Western forces will reach the White House on July 4th.
Oh my God.
Get in the car! Get in the car! You're gonna hang back.
I'm not hanging back.
One nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. God bless America.
Wow. So, it's kind of weird to watch, huh?
Scary. That's a scary thing to watch.
That's
actually.
a scary thing to watch. What scares you the most about it? Because I have the same reaction. What scares you the most about it?
What scares me the most about that is that it looks like a good movie. Like, honestly, it looks like an intriguing movie that could entice people to actually watch it. That is one of the scary things. And the fact that not just does it look like a good movie, but it looks like it's something that some people, it will, I think it's something that could resonate with people in a bad way, right? It'll touch their fears, especially with the uncertainty of 2024 election. One of the, I don't know if you picked up on it, but they talked about a president who had served 3 terms.
In that?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't hear that.
Yeah, it was subtle. I noticed only because of the subtitles. Like our third-term president or like three-term president. We could probably rewind that, but it's like, why did they choose to have a president who's going on third terms if we know that presidents only supposed to have two? It kind of indicates a tyrannical leader in America for this movie, you know. And I feel like a lot of people argue about who and what is a tyrannical leader today. So it's like almost anybody on any political side could be like, oh, this person's a tyrannical leader they're kind of touching on, or that person is a tyrannical leader. On top of, like, they're talking about bombing civilians in America. Like, do you feel bad for it? That's happened globally. And it's like, to paint that as something that's happening here at home, scary.
Yeah, and I think that it's, you know, the other thing is, in addition to it looking like they produced an entertaining movie, is that it almost feels a little too real. Like, when I watch that, there's like this undertone of like, dang, could that happen here? Are we going towards that? Like, why is this being pitched to a media company? Why is it getting picked up by a media company? Why is it being produced? Why is it being marketed? Like, who's behind a video like that? And I think that it's a sign of the times, is that this wouldn't have been a popular movie 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago probably. But right now, someone walked into a room and said, if I make a movie about the Civil War, it'll sell in America. That's something that people would be open to seeing or kind of buy into as a storyline, which, like, I don't know, it seems a little bit too real. It seems like it's too, like, the timing of it to come out at the spring before what we all know is going to be a very contested presidential election one way or the other. Like, there's some scary stuff in there, subtleties I didn't hear about the three-term president. Like, what is the desired impact for the people who produce the movie, and how are people going to react to it? What do you think?
I don't know. Because there are a lot of movies today that people think are going to do well and they flop. So if this is one of those, I also wouldn't be surprised. You know what else this kind of made me feel like, and maybe people resonate like that? Like, do you remember when The Purge came out? Yeah.
Yes.
There's a lot of Purge vibes, you know? Just
Yeah.
a lot of like, whoa, could this happen?
Yeah.
Like, I remember watching The Purge and be like, man, the world can get rowdy.
Yeah.
You know? And this isn't something that I feel like is something out of the realm of possibility. You know, that movie and The Purge, I just see some similarities in there. And, like, even I still think The Purge could happen still, you know?
That's a really good analogy. I remember when The Purge 1 came out, there was a lot of controversy around it. There was people saying, like, this is too real, this shouldn't be put out, yada, yada, yada. And then there was, like, kind of like you said, there was this whole, like, when people watched it, they're like, could this happen? Should this? Like, it was all of that. And it's like, who's getting Purge vibes of, like, this shouldn't go out? And who's watching this and being like, this is a good movie. This is something, you know. Like I said, how are people reacting to it? And I think that I could see this being a very interesting movie where either side of the political aisle you're on, you watch this and you're like, yep, I could see the other side doing this.
Yeah.
Both sides, both political sides, Democrats and Republicans, could watch this and think, I could see the other side starting something like this in their minds.
Yeah.
Which is a scary time to live in when you think that your political opponents are capable of creating a divide that would cause a civil war. That's not good. We do not want to look across the aisle and say, you're capable of a civil war. You want to look across the aisle and be like, we're going to work towards compromise to make things better for the country. When they're making movies about civil war, and when people are looking at it being like, dang, you know, this could happen. The other side's pretty crazy these days. Ooh, scary times when you see that.
Yeah, no, I agree. And it's not a good, like, listen, I get why they might be doing it in terms of, like, pure box office. This is going to bring in money because there's a level of uncertainty and people are going to look at this and be like, oh, I'm interested. I just want to know what they came up with. But it's not good for America to be putting out this type of, you know, one could argue this is propaganda.
Yep.
You know, anti-American propaganda, to paint one political faction that terribly. You know, I'm pro America. I love Americans, even ones I disagree with. I think it's terrible to be trying to create a divide with our own media just for profits. And unfortunately, we do that with everything. We talked about this on our last podcast, but we'll glorify anything terrible if it means the bottom line is there's a profit. And I think that's what we're happening. We're seeing Hollywood pander to the pandemonium of the political climate just to make a banger.
Yeah.
They don't care.
They don't care what it did. Yeah, they either don't care or they're like, this is an opportunity. I could see it being one or the other. I could see them being like, I don't care. This is something that is going to be really timely because it's the presidential election season. Let's put it out there because it's going to sell tickets. Or I could see them on the other side saying, this is going to get a lot of eyeballs. How would we want to influence the American viewer? And then they slip in I don't know how this is going to be produced, but whatever message they want to have the people walking away from the film thinking. And they're like, this is a really good time to get people thinking about something we want them to think about. So it could be one or the other. They're either like, we don't care, let's make money, or they're like, yo, this is a great time to take advantage of people and really get them fearful of this thing and then tell them that blank. And I don't know what the blank is, but I think if they are going that latter route, there is a walk away message they want people to have when they watch this movie.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's a good one. No matter what, it's not a good one.
I agree. I'm not a fan of this movie, but I'll probably watch it.
Yeah,
probably
you're gonna
watch
pay
it.
to watch it?
I don't know. Maybe you want to come with me? You want to watch it?
Maybe. I don't know.
Eugene, you want to watch this movie?
Does it entice you? Does it interest you when you
didn't
heard
see
it?
Did you?
I get to watch it from what I heard. I mean, it sounds slightly interesting.
It's interesting. It's scary.
Yeah. You don't have earphones, right? On you?
No.
I was gonna say, listen to what we talking.
You can watch it again.
But it's I'd watch it. If I'm being objectively speaking, outside of is this bad for the country? I'm serious. I thought it was a good trailer.
Yeah.
Enticing. Not
It could be
good for the
it
country.
could be a good action flick movie.
Yeah.
I guess the scary thing then is separating it. There's a movie, and that's one thing. Is it a good movie or not? Separately, the thought around Civil War. People need to ask themselves, where does this end? Where is the direction of America going? Are we going towards a country that's going to have something that happens and we're going to become more unified again, and we're going to work towards progress of having us all become a more United States of America? Or is it going towards civil war? Because you're either getting closer or further apart. I think that's kind of the one thing. What is the phrase? It's the one constant is change in life.
You're either getting better or getting
you're
worse.
getting better or you're getting worse. Is America getting closer together or more polarized? And I would argue right now it's more in the direction of polarized. Is there something that's going to bring us together, or is that the end result? And if that's the end result, that's scary. What does the world look like when you have people who look at their fellow American as an enemy? He said it in the clip himself. He was like, well, what type of American are you? We can disagree in America, and we've touched upon that a lot. I think disagreement's a critical component of America, but we're all Americans. I think we all agree there's larger enemies out there that we should be worried about rather than our fellow American. We might disagree on topics, but we're all Americans. Once you start looking at them as an enemy, scary.
Yeah. For the sake of America, hopefully that movie sucks.
I'm going to give it a 1 star on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah. For the sake of the $10 I'm going to spend to watch it, I hope it's good.
We got to find a Wednesday matinee showing. I won't pay over $8 for that.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
interesting. It's just when I saw that the first time, I was like, "Whoa, that's deep."
Yeah.
That hit different. It was very similar to a Purge effect, where I was like, kind of made me feel scared, made me feel awkward, uneasy. I would say that's probably the number one. I felt uneasy watching it.
Yeah. No, I felt pretty uneasy too. Yeah. When he said, "What kind of American are you?"
Yeah.
In my head, I was like, "What kind of American am I?"
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think that's a question you end up asking yourself, because you just put yourself in that person's position. Like, what would I say? Right? And then it makes you think, well, where am I? Where am I when I'm asked this?
And that's really interesting to think, like, whatever because that's kind of a very open-ended question. Where does your brain go to answer that question? Because that's how you view your furthest opponent categorically in America. Like, whatever your brain thinks when someone says, what type of American are you? Is that your political affiliation? Is that where you're, like, are you an East Coast, West Coast, or is it like there's a number of different ways you could think about yourself and say, what type of American am I? And I think however your knee-jerk reaction is to that question kind of puts a spotlight onto who do you feel like is the furthest apart from you in this country. But yeah, and the other thing they said in there, not only what type of American are you, but it literally says all empires must fall. And I was like, I don't like seeing that either. Like, what are they saying? The downfall of America is inevitable? That's not a message I want to see in movies. Like, I feel like when you watch, like, 90s movies and 80s movies, it was like, America. Like, there was, like, really, like, pushing the American stuff. And now they're literally saying a movie about America, all empires fall. Like, what are they implying? That America's at the end of its reign? Like, that's not a good message Americans should be listening to. They're like, the empire's going to fall and you're going to start fighting your fellow American. Just the whole thing. It's like, why are you putting that idea in people's heads? There was like this and then another movie recently, and the term that I'm hearing a lot lately, I don't know if you've heard about it, predictive programming or something like that, or it was something like that where they're saying, like, they're putting these movies out here, like we talk about it a bunch of times, to normalize the concept. And I don't think that's a good thing. It shouldn't be normal to think America's headed to civil war. Yeah. That's not a good idea.
Yeah, people are constantly now talking about, oh, is America the next Roman Empire where it had its reign and it's running down? But, like, yeah, like, empires fall, but there are empires that are still around. You know what I mean? Like, look at China. They've had a long run.
They've had ups and downs.
They've had their ups and downs, but they're still here.
England's had a pretty long run.
England's had a pretty long run, you know. Russia, you know, they had their ups and downs, but hey, they're still sticking around, right? I'd like to think America's going to be here another 100 years. I'd like to think that, you know, 3 generations down from me, we're still going to be enjoying the fruits, and, you know, hopefully we're doing better than ever. But it's not a good sign when your media is rooting for your downfall. You know what I mean? That's not a good sign.
Agreed.
Yeah. And it's like, you could have made any movie. Why did you make a movie about our country being split apart? Why don't you make a movie about our country getting stronger?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. An American empowering movie.
Yeah, maybe like a World War III, but we're on the good side. You know what I mean? No, look, like, okay, yeah, World War III is not great or anything, but
I think there's a bunch of ways you can go at it that makes America seem unified, strong, good, and they chose the opposite. I don't know if I go World War III, but I would go make a movie that makes people be like, I'm proud to be an American, not a movie that makes you look across someone in the theater and be like, what type of American are you? Like, that's not a good message. Yeah. Not a good message to have.
Even the World War III, that's a lot of programming being done in my head.
Yeah.
That's a lot of these news media outlets. Every day we hear, is World War III around the corner? Is this in the third? Like, all the time. Man, let's get back to making... What's that movie about the jets?
Top Gun.
Let's make more Top Guns.
Top Gun. When I walked out of Top Gun, I felt good.
Let's make some Saving Private Ryans. You know what I mean? Americans holding it down for Americans.
For Americans.
Right?
We're all Americans.
We're all Americans.
We got each other's back.
We got each other's back.
Make that movie.
Yeah.
Let's produce that.
Yeah. Yeah. Where's Steven Spielberg? Go make you a pro-America movie. Hey, listen, Hollywood. If you don't want to make pro-America movies, give me a reason why you don't want to make pro-America movies. You know? Hey, you know what? I challenge you to make a pro-America movie. You know why? Because it's easy to shit on America. You know? It's easy to just constantly tear things down. How about you build something up? You know?
And I think Americans want that. I do think Americans want a movie they can walk out, feel good movie, feel good about where we live, feel good about the blessings we have to be in America. There's nothing wrong with that. Make a movie where people walk out feeling good about America, feeling good about their fellow American, and we all get along. Like, we all have a commonality we can unite us, rather than something where, best case scenario, someone watches this and is like, hope that doesn't happen. You know what I mean? Like, that's not a good effect. No matter what, they walk out and be like, let's make sure that, I don't know. It's whether it's predictive programming or whether it's just them putting out something they think they're going to sell, it's not messaging that I think helps America. I wouldn't make the movie. If I was a Hollywood movie producing company, I'm not buying that script.
Yeah.
Let someone else make it.
Yeah. And
Make
maybe
it an
that's
indie
why
film.
we're not Hollywood producers.
Maybe it's why we're not. They're like, you don't see the money. This is big money movie.
That's a big money movie. But you know what? Maybe it flops.
I hope it flops.
I hope it flops too. I'm going to watch it though.
Yeah. We'll watch it. We can do a Big Fish, Little Fish. This is kind of the trailer reaction. We can do a watch review.
Post. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So anyway, don't got to beat a dead horse, but I just wanted to touch on it. Very wild concept. Very interested to see its effects on people in 2024 in a presidential election cycle when we're in a very polarized time.
Yeah.
Not a fan.
Which is a great segue into our next topic. Why is everything in America so political? You know, everything in America is so political. And I got my reasons, or I got my thoughts and reasons, you know. I think part of the reason America is so political is because of the news. It's become because of the news. I think it started in the mid 2010s, and it's created because the news has made so many topics political. Like, everything has become political. Sports, food, commercials, television. Like, think of the most basic thing. It's political, right? And people talk about it all the time. Like, sports used to be something you could throw on and you're just watching sports. You're just watching highlights, whatever. And it's not even just political on some like Democrat, Republican. Like, it's political on like the smallest avenue. Like, we're so involved in, you know, celebrities, actors, athletes' personal lives. And it's just like, and it's like, where do you stand on the spectrum between men versus women on this thing? Like, anything. They make it political. And I think that's news. So here's the thing. Here's my 3 reasons on why the news is no longer trusted or respected. 1, they have a huge political bias that leans either left or right. And it's obvious, right? If you're looking at CNN, you know, everyone knows they lean left. If you're watching Fox, everyone knows they lean right. So no matter what comes out of those types of organizations, people are like, oh my gosh, like, this is bias. I cannot trust this, you know? And they know this. They're trying to rile things up. They're trying to make everything political when sometimes things are just the news. There's no objective things coming out of these organizations anymore that's like, this is what happened. This is what happened. Here's why you should be upset about this and why this group, it's their fault, right? It's terrible. I think the second reason is there's a lot of opinion-based commentary nowadays. So on top of, you know, this organization is going to be left or right-wing bias, now people are just straight up like opinion on the news, right? Like, I remember growing up, like op-eds, they just weren't as rampant as they are today. And people aren't even hiding it, right? Like, it's just something that I think people are sick of, and it's created this environment where everything, it has made everything political, right? Like, look at a newspaper and every single topic from like tech to business to sports to like what Congress is doing. Obviously, Congress is political, it's politics, but everything's political. And, you know, I think now more than ever, the third thing is people know how the news is portrayed. Like, people are aware of these bias. Like, I think as before, people blindly trusted the news. Now, people, no matter what side of the aisle you stand on, they're looking at the news and they're like, where's the junk? Where's the issues? Where is the bias? And they're looking for these things and they're nitpicking it. So they automatically reading these news knowing there's going to be bias, and they're trying to figure that out rather than objectionably reading it. People are expecting that more than they ever have. Like, I remember growing up, I was very big into the Washington Post and the New York Times. And now I see how people can't take those news sources as face value as they used to. Now people are more focused on independent journalists, as well as social media. People will run to their social media app, whether it's X or Instagram or, I don't know, Reddit. I don't use Reddit, but I'm sure people look up news on Reddit. But that's where people are getting their news. They don't necessarily believe in the mainstream like they used to. And we know this because, I think people have seen so many cases in the last 20 years where the media has portrayed a situation to be something that it's not, based off someone's race or religion or something, right? To spin it a certain way, and then you find out, a month later or a year later that, oh no, that's not how it happened. So now, because of those situations and how many times they've happened, people are just never taking the news for face value. And now when they hear something come out, some people are obviously always going to react immediately, but there are people who are like, well, let's wait until all the facts come out. Let's see, this is what the Washington Post said. Let's find out what the New York Post said. Let's find out what the Times said. Let's find out what Breaking Point said or some other news outlet before I make a decision and start posting it online. But obviously there's someone who's always going to post about it immediately. Someone's always going to be like, I stand with X, Y, or Z, right? The second it comes out. So I also think part of the reason things have become so political is because of social media, right? People post something on social media and now they feel like they have to respond to their friend. Their friend posts something, and now there's like this social pressure of like, okay, I have to like it. Okay, I should comment, and if you don't post, it's like, well, why didn't you post? Why didn't you post on this thing? And you may feel a certain way about it, but you may not want to post about it because it's like, I don't have to let the whole public know my opinion, right? Whether I agree with it or disagree with it. But now there's this social pressure, especially among people in their 20s and teens, where if you don't post about something, people think you're against it or maybe for it. And that wasn't something I had to deal with as much growing up, but I can definitely see it now. And because of social media, you're constantly being given your friends' political agendas constantly. It's like the first thing on your feed. Whereas before, if my friend had a feeling about some political stance, I didn't have to think about it all the time. He has that thought in his mind, but it's in his mind. But now people splurge their ideas on their profiles. And because you're on social media all day, you're just looking at their ideas and their thoughts, whether it's meaningless or whether it's something deep. So we're being hit with these deep political ideas every single day. It didn't used to be like that. Before social media, I'd go a whole day in high school, like never thinking about politics. Now kids see politics, like not just every day by the media, but like I said, from their friends' social media, and that peer pressure to respond in some manner is something that we've never seen. And it's not just, obviously, it's not just kids, it's adults. Everyone has a friend who posts about whatever blanket topic the second it happens. And for some reason, already has a stance about it before they even know all the facts. They're just immediately post, right? And then if you don't post or like or whatever, they're going to be like, well, what do you think about this? And you can't, it's almost like they don't want you to just be like, I don't know enough, or I don't feel comfortable talking about that in public. Well, why not? Because I don't want to. I don't need to. I'm not obligated to do that, And it's a weird thing that's happened, and I think it's created a hyper political environment in today's society. But I just went on a rant. So tell me some of your
we
thoughts.
love a good rant on this podcast, so no stopping you there. No, I agree with both of those major categories 100%. Why do you think that is for both of them?
What both topics and all? 'Cause I talked
The
about
media.
a lot of stuff.
Well, the two main ones I took away from that is the media, and then like individuals on social media feeling the need to push these. So why?
I think the media. Well, I'll say this. I think social media is just sick. I think the people recognize that, and they've talked about these type of studies like Facebook and Instagram and the old Twitter used to do, how engagement caused people to be on social media more, and nothing creates engagement like people being angry about something, right? And so they use people's anger and frustrations to promote divisiveness and to promote people just blurting out things, even if they don't know anything about it. Because now somebody can say anything about like something they know nothing about. And unfortunately, a lot of people take it personally, you know, and they'll say things online they would never say in person. People don't communicate the way they do online in person. You know, people in general can't communicate that well in person anymore. Like everyone's on their phone when they're in public, right? Like people aren't talking. So, you know, take that another level and you see that they're using people's inabilities to talk in person and have like relaxed discussion, and they put them online where they're more frantic and they're more emotional from seeing a post, and they know that they can create that division if they're just constantly putting that on your feed, you know, promoting like you'll notice that certain things are promoted in the algorithm way more, and it's always the divisive thing that's getting a million comments, like no matter what it is. So I think it's the media just using that for, you know, and that engagement helps their profits, right? They can get more advertising revenue from that, and ultimately, like, you know, it comes down to profits. Unfortunately, it comes down to making money. So I think on the media side, it's making money, and a lot of these political things come with money in the sense, like whatever the stance is. Like, I'm not trying to get too political, even though we're talking about politics, but like, let's say, you know, people were arguing about what's something I can say that's not going to make someone sick right now. But whatever political topic, there is a price
I have
tag.
one idea. No, just kidding.
but whatever political thing, there's always like a price tag on it, right? Like let's say
well, let's not go that route. I think you're going down a route that's not good. I agree with you that it is pushed for engagement. I think we live in a eyeballs and clicks environment where the media, if we're going to start with the media, they only get paid if they have your attention, whether it's on their platform or whether you're clicking on their articles or whatever it might be. And simply reporting the news is never as entertaining as reporting the news and giving a spin end onto it one way or the other, because they know that the reporting the news, sometimes it's just a fact, whereas if you report the news and blame it on someone, there's either going to be someone who comes to their defense or someone that comes to attack them saying that's not true. So you can watch these media outlets and they can, none of them, like you said, I think you made a good point earlier. You were like, well, there's way more op-eds than there were ever. I would argue that the shift is not that there's more op-eds, that op-eds are the standard. Opinional pieces are how news is reported now, whereas back in the day, they used to just report on the news and then you would interpret your opinion of it. Now, news format is built in with the opinion because then they know they can already get you to a place where you're going to react one way or the other. And it's going to drive more engagement, and they know who their user bases are, and if they give it, there's either echo chambers for one side or the other, and then people who are just, you know, shaking their fist at one side or the other. So it's like giving objective-based news is too bland for society now. If you really want eyeballs, you got to be riling them up. And same thing with social media. I didn't think about the point where it was saying like people, they're tapping into their frustrations and all of that. But at the same time, it made me think it also is a chance where maybe if you didn't get a lot of attention, now you can say something and you have a 400 comment later post and you're getting a notification every time, and that dopamine rush of you being on a popular post on social media, like you feel like you're actively involved. So it's like they're getting attention out of it, and they do it to get attention. Otherwise, why would you be posting those things on social media? I've always said that I don't think social media is the appropriate venue to be sharing political ideas, which is ironic because we do a podcast, so that's kind of like a different version. But I think this is a dedicated forum versus your personal social media page. I just don't think that social media and your political opinions go hand in hand. Like, that wasn't the intention of it in my mind, and I don't think it's a conducive environment to have political conversations in person with someone you know or someone you don't know, and you can really talk back and forth. But like you said, there's keyboard warriors out there, and once they start riling up people, it's a completely different conversation, and next thing you know, it's just two echo chambers yelling at each other as opposed to actually having political debate, which is what people like say it's under. But I don't think it's really happening. I think it's just people yelling at each other.
Yeah, I think what frustrates me about people who post on social media about political topics is there are people who really care about said political topic. But what annoys me is the people who don't care, but they're just posting for the validation and posting because they feel like obligated for peer pressures or to keep up appearance, but they don't care about that topic. They're just doing it for the likes, the comments, and to be doing the socially acceptable thing, whatever is going to keep them cool. And I feel like it breeds, in some ways, many politicians, because it's just like you will say whatever it is that you have to say in order to be liked.
And I think it pushes you towards, like you said, social pressures to say something that you may not normally have said. Like, I know of things, and I'm not going to go over the topics, but there have been things that have been trends on political topics that if you didn't post that trend, people would, like you said earlier, judge you and say, hey, why aren't you posting this? And by simply not posting it, now you're being categorized into the other group. It's either you post for us or you're against us. And I don't think that's not the intention of social media, and that's not how society should operate. No one should feel like they have to say something, otherwise you're in the camp of others. Sometimes you might want to just keep your personal opinion to yourself, and that's okay. You don't have to be saying your opinion to everyone. If you feel so inclined to do it, but for someone to be like, if you don't post this post, you're against us. Like, that's not how the world works. That's not how people interact. You can't force someone to agree with your opinion and share it. Yeah. That's tyrannical.
Yeah. It's always weird when someone's like, if you're not doing something for this, you're part of the problem. If you're not with this movement, you're part of the problem. Even if you're not against it, you're part of the problem. Yeah. And it's like, no, I'm not. I don't have to be with you. I don't have to be against you. Like, don't try to navigate my efforts, thoughts, and emotions. Like, you're not obligated to any of my attention, power, or will. Like, what the hell are you talking about?
I may even agree with you and decide that I don't want to post it. I may be neutral on the topic and say I'm not educated enough. I might be against you and say I'm trying to be respectful by not posting it. There's a number of different reasons why I might not post, and for you to tell me if I don't post it, I'm not with you, you're making some big assumptions on that statement. Yeah. Not a big fan.
And unfortunately, sometimes I may not care.
Yeah.
And guess what? You don't care about every single topic going on overseas. Does that mean you're against them or you're part of the problem? No. Yeah. It may just not be your issue.
It didn't hit your radar.
Unfortunately, or fortunately, it really just depends on where you're at with things. But like, it's unfortunate. Everything is political.
Everything's political. Got to tiptoe around a lot of things these days. There are certain topics you mention and you kind of cringe and make a face when you say it, right?
Yeah, and unfortunately, with everything being political, it makes people afraid to talk.
Yeah, which is the most dangerous part.
Yeah, you're afraid to always potentially offend somebody, you know. And there used to be a time in America where you could talk about politics with friends, and it wasn't a deal breaker.
Yeah.
Yeah, like there's still plenty of people who can be friends with both like sides of any issue, but there are plenty of people who are like, if you don't align with me on A through Z, we can't be friends because you're X. And it's like, what? That's not how the world operates. There are people who hate each other in one part of the world, but they trade with the people who have the exact opposite ideas, religions, and ways of life. And they can come together and make a trade in order to keep society moving. And then you're telling me that we have a different opinion on a political issue in America, and we can't even speak to each other?
Yeah.
If that's you, reevaluate, because that's not how the world works. At least not a functioning world that moves in the right direction.
Yeah. It's a wild concept. I don't know who needs to hear this, but it's okay for you to share your thoughts and beliefs, and it's okay for you to refrain from sharing your thoughts and beliefs. Society should never be pressuring you one way or the other. If you feel like you want to share your thoughts and beliefs, you should feel, at least in America, the freedom of speech is a pretty important thing. And if you want to share it, that's okay. And you shouldn't be worried about how you're going to be, marginalized or canceled or taken out of, society's like acceptable things because you said something. You're just sharing your thoughts and opinions. And at the same time, on the flip side, if you don't want to share your thoughts and opinions, you shouldn't be pressured to do it. That is what freedom of speech is. It's both sides. It's freedom to speak and it's freedom to not speak. It's freedom to share your thoughts. It's freedom to refrain it. And whenever anyone starts telling you, you need to say this or you're not allowed to say this, that's starting to get in some dangerous waters that I think is different than what our founding fathers intended for us. We were based on a few core principles, and one of them very early on was the freedom of speech. And I think that whenever you're talking about that, you got to think on other people's perspectives. I think people need to use more discretion on what they say and how they say it, but that's a refinement of how you communicate, not the fact that people are telling you how you're allowed to communicate. There's better ways to communicate and worse ways to communicate, but to censor or to encourage certain speech, that's not the point. You as an individual get to come to your own conclusions and share those things or not share them.
I agree.
I agree.
Okay. Wonderful. We're on the same page on something.
Yeah. Doesn't happen every time, but when it happens, it's refreshing.
Okay. So I guess a good segue, right? Well, how are we doing on time? We can talk about it.
We're 45 minutes in.
Oh, okay.
Good.
Not too bad.
Bumping on to the last one. We're
So
cruising.
we just talked about why is everything in America so political? Why are politicians getting exposed right now? Why are politicians getting exposed?
I think on the one hand, you can take a lot of what we said about the media and just swap in the word politician, and a lot of the things we discussed in the last segment apply to here. But I think if there is a benefit to social media and communication channels, it's that now people are able to share more perspectives and points of view, and it's not just the kind of mainstream media route. For so long, either something wasn't covered, so a politician could do something and it just wasn't covered, or it was covered by one of the mainstream media outlets, so it was kind of already being kind of like determined what the message is going to be about the activity. And then you had this very small group who was like investigative journalism, and that was like those random, journalists who would go out and they would be doing, dirty work just to get like a news scoop and all of that, and that was a small group. Well, when you have more people who have platforms to share their thoughts and more access to information and more media, they can kind of do more investigative journalism. And I think individuals have kind of taken up that torch to say, hey, I'm not just going to take what the mainstream media says as fact and what these politicians are probably pushing down the mainstream media for what they want us to think. And I'm gonna start thinking for myself. I'm gonna share things with other people so they know what's going on. And I think that there's been enough big ones that have kind of cracked where people are starting to lose faith in their politicians. Like one that we talked about before that I think is a fundamental one in my lifetime is I was a kid during the Iraq time frame when the Iraq war started, and that was one thing where like America was like pretty on the same page about it going into, because there was the mainstream media saying it, there was like 9/11 and a lot of stuff, and it was just like it was sold to America, and America ate it up that our politicians were acting on what's the best interest of Americans by doing that war. And then as time went on, I think we realized it's more complex than they made it out to be, and the results weren't exactly what they said, and we kind of started looking and be like, why didn't you tell us these things? Whether or not it was good to go to the war, like, why didn't you share that with the people? You told us this one part of the story when there was way more that we as Americans are entitled to hear. And when you have stuff like that happening, where you have major wars happening, and at the same time now you have major things about like corruption happening. We've talked about this, the political trading that's happening and how they're getting rich off being politicians, the lobbyists and the dark money campaigns and these special interest groups and all these people. And we're starting to actually hear who they are and what they do. We're like, hey, wait a minute, you're a politician. You say all these things on the campaign trail, and then next thing you know, your actions aren't reflecting your words. And we can see that now as opposed to it just not having been addressed. Like, we're becoming more aware as a society, and I think the more aware we are as a society, the more of a spotlight it puts on politicians, and the bigger the spotlight on the politicians, the worse they look. I mean, I don't know a lot. Isn't politicians, like, confidence ratings by Americans, like, super low? Like, no one trusts politicians. It's like there was a debate on Twitter one time where it was like, who do you trust less, billionaires or politicians? And politicians didn't get a good rating. They're not super trusted, and I think it's because we're seeing their actions. And bottom line to that all, their actions don't reflect their campaign trails. That we can all agree on.
Yeah. So first of all, I definitely want to agree on one of your points. Like, the media cannot hide these politicians anymore. Like, exactly what you said. Back in the Iraq War, we heard what the media wanted us to hear. And that was it. There wasn't really that much political commentary. Like, there were probably a few late night shows and stuff like that. But, now the typical podcast can literally give commentary within an hour of news breaking out on whatever topics the politicians are involved in. And because of that, when politicians are doing grimy things, they're immediately covered. And it's all over. Not even just the news, but social media, which is what people are tuning into more, right? So as a politician, there's no real hiding the grimy stuff. You hear stories about what old politicians used to do. JFK, you hear about his,
entanglements
with other women that weren't his wife. I'm not going to get into Thomas Jefferson or anything like that, but at the same time, like, you used to be able to hide things if you're a politician. Now you can't. It's over. If you're a grimy politician, whether it comes to light sooner or later, it's going to come out. And when it comes out, it's going to be everywhere, unfortunately. I also just think politicians are dirtier than before. And the reason I say that is they're dirtier in a way that it's like more... It's more profound. You can see that a lot of them are you can see them competing for that money. You can see them going after each other in debates and being like, oh, this person is corrupt because of X, Y, and Z. And then them hitting back, oh, what about your X, Y, and Z? And it's like, wow, we're seeing this in real time. People are running dirty campaigns. They're just trying to get each other out of here. Social media covers things like that. It's a really social media driven world, and I feel like that's a big component of why politicians are getting they're getting more exposed. And I think the political machine works against those politicians who aren't ready to play ball. And it's obvious, right? The second a politician kind of starts breaking off from the matrix, you can see the political machine's like, okay, let's get the media, let's get our social media guys that kind of, tiptoe to what we do. Let's start attacking them. And they know the secrets ahead of time. They help those people get in office. They know the weaknesses. Mm-hmm. So the second that person that they helped get in and they know where their weaknesses lie, the second they start being like, okay, like, I'm not going to do everything you guys say. They're like, you're not? Okay. I know that you cheated on your wife. I know where your company gets its big money from. I know about your secret clients. I know your deep, darkest secrets. I will expose them. Toe the line. And we see it all the time.
Do you think that's new, though?
Well, the question is, why are they getting exposed? And I think the exposing isn't like what it is today. I think before it was a lot more closed room type of things where it was like, all right, you're out, you're just out. And I think now it's like people are like, oh, I don't want to leave, and they're like, oh, you're gonna leave. We're and even in some ways it's better for them to expose it, because now they're not making them leave. The people are making them leave. As before it was like, you kind of have to do things, and if they don't do what it says, like, oh man, like, how am I going to get this? The people love him. Well, now you just got to tear that person down. Now you have to leak.
Smear campaign.
Yeah. Easy. And it's not you doing it. You get it out there, you leak it to somebody on Twitter or Instagram or wherever, and then it's everywhere. And then all of your adoring fans become a hater like that.
Yeah. It's interesting, though, because I feel like the playing field is starting to level, though. Because the difference is, back in the day, the establishment or the people in power would do that, If you didn't toe the line, they're like, hey, we're going to expose you for this or expose you for that. But like I was saying earlier, now everyone's kind of on the chopping block. Every politician out there has many, many, many people who are making sure they're acting in accordance with what they're saying. Like, there's just more eyes on them. There's more ways to report when they're acting sketchy. There's more people investigating into them because they have resources too. And I think it's shifting where it's now not just, hey, we have a secret on you. It's the people who are in power are like, dang, like, is someone going to catch me for this? Like, maybe the establishment's not going to, like, expose me, but I could still get caught by the people. Like, I think that's why I was saying, I was looking at it more from a positive lens of, like, why are politicians getting exposed? I don't think it's as much of the establishment exposing them. I think they do it when they need to get someone out. But at the exact same time, I think we're all getting a little more aware of what's going on. They're kind of, it's like the gig's up, It's like, hey, politicians, got a secret for you. We know. Like, we're out here and we know that you go on a campaign and then you get elected into office, and everything you said on the campaign, you're not actually doing in office anymore. We know that there are people who are out there who, are special interest groups, and then they buy you out in the campaign, and then they have, like, a very high influence over you. We know that you're getting rich during your time in office. We know that you're voting for things that aren't what you said you're going to be voting for. Like, we now see it and we know, and, like, you can't continue doing what was the old racket of, like, you get elected in and then you're in for a while. Like, I think the longer we go on with the system we have now, the more people are going to get exposed. I hope, at least, that we get to a point one day where a lot of these corrupt politicians get exposed, and hopefully the people can actually step up to the plate and do something about it. That's my biggest worry, is that we expose them, and then we know these people are corrupt, and next thing you know, they're elected again because they're incumbents, and incumbents get, the highest re-election rate. We're doing a good job of exposing the politicians. Now we just got to follow through and vote them out. If you're a scumbag politician, let's get them out of here. Let's actually be proud of our politicians again, because we get good people in office, as opposed to these people who get in and then it's just like they're career politicians and they're corrupt and they get super rich while they're there and they get out and then they become lobbyists. And it's just like, we know We know now what you guys do. We understand the game, and it's like, stop it. We don't want you doing that anymore. Let's change it back for the better. Let's get away from this establishment-driven, corrupt political system and shift it back again to people who have values and who are actually going to follow through with what they campaign on. But it's a tough ask because they're up against the establishment.
Yeah. I would also say politicians are also getting exposed because in the past they could be robots and be like, I think about this or I stand here, da da da. But it's like they get those 1 minute, 2 minute segments on CNN or Fox and they can fake it for 1 to 2 minutes. But now when they're going on long form platforms and people are asking them not softball questions, real questions people want to hear, and they try to dodge it. A lot of these podcasters are like, whoa, don't you dodge this question, buddy. You're gonna have to give me an answer. And then when they say, well, when they give some super lukewarm answer, people are like, oh, you're full of shit.
Yeah.
You're fake. People see that. They're like, oh, you're giving a lukewarm answer on this thing that we all know you should be saying. You're weak. That's what people are seeing. They're being exposed right there. The second they get on the long form and they get those hard questions and they can't just be a robot and say all the weak stuff that they've said on Fox, CNN, MSNBC to the Washington Post journalists, and they have to answer those questions, people see it. And it's great. It's wonderful because that's how you see the real good crop politicians rise, and the weak ones, their campaigns start to and then the certain party will be like, all right, let's hide this person, let's not have them in any more long form interviews. And then when they do that, people are like, all right, we know
Yeah.
it's a weak candidate.
Yeah, I think that the most promising thing I've seen is the lack of trust in and the declining results of mainstream media. I think that it's more of an archaic process and it made sense for a different time. But now you got to be a little more real. You got to be able to actually have a real conversation with a real person that's not a pre-scripted conversation. And let's see what you really think about topics. Let's see how you're going to put it on record for those hard-hitting questions. Put it on record for your thoughts on topics. If you're going to be elected and representing people, you gotta say things and you gotta follow through. And if not, I'll say this again, it is the responsibility of the people for us to follow through. That's the thing I'm the most worried about. I believe we're getting in a better place about getting the exposure of these corrupt politicians out there, but at the same time, I don't know if I see people reacting as strongly as they should. Like if we know you're corrupt, you shouldn't be there. I can probably name right now, and I'm not going to name names, but 10 corrupt politicians, and I look at you and I'm like, you're a scumbag. I know that you're corrupt. You're not in, like, I just know it, and a lot of them are going to get reelected, and I know it, and they know it, and it's on both sides. It's not like, oh, I believe one thing, so, oh, these guys are corrupt. Both sides, give me 5 and 5. I can put 5 names on both sides of the aisle that are corrupt politicians, and they shouldn't be reelected, and I would bet that most of them are probably going to get reelected. It's because the people's voting doesn't seem to, it's like we're seeing it, but you got to take action. It can't stop with knowing it. It has to go all the way through to, hey, we finally caught you for being corrupt. Guess what? Enjoy your last few months. You're not going to be here next year.
Yeah. Got nothing to add.
I got nothing to add.
I gave you guys all I had today.
Yeah.
I gave you guys all I had.
It was good stuff.
Yeah.
It's good stuff.
It was good. We went over some why is America so political, why politicians get exposed, did a little reaction, first time reaction. Let us know what you guys think about that. Got to know.
Last question. What do you think it's going to pull first weekend in the box office? Give a number. How many millions?
How many views?
Millions of dollars. That's usually how they measure it. What is it going to make box office first weekend? Civil War.
50 million.
50 million. I think that's a good opening weekend, especially for a non-major. Yeah. I'm gonna go 35 million. 35 million. We'll see. So okay. Winner gets a Celsius.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey.
Not endorsed, not sponsored.
Shout out to
but they do get us. They get us through these podcast episodes on late nights, like tonight. That's how we do it.
Yeah. Shout out to our non-sponsors. if you want to sponsor us, reach out.
All right, brother. Anything else?
No, that's all I got.
In the books.
Shout out to Pope.